हेलो दोस्तों, बिगनर्स पॉइंट में आपका स्वागत है। और अभी हम कर रहे हैं इकोनॉमी। इससे पहले कर चुके हैं, ये कर लिया है पूरा। ठीक है, यहाँ तक अगर नहीं देखा है तो पुरानी वीडियो में जाकर देख सकते हैं, प्लेलिस्ट बना रखी है। मोनोटोनिक प्रेफरेंसेस। Consumers' preferences are assumed to be such that between any two bundles, X1, X2 and Y1, Y2, if X1, X2 has more of at least one of the goods and no less of the other good compared to Y1, Y2, then the consumer prefers X1, X2 to Y1, Y2. Preferences of this kind are called monadic preferences. Thus, a consumer's preferences are monotonic if and only if between any two bundles, the consumer prefers the bundle which has more of at least one of the goods and no one less of the other good has compared to the other bundle. ये पूरा ग्राफ बना के दे रखा है। एम आर एस डेल्टा वाई अपॉन डेल्टा एक्स इज इक्वल टू -1/1। आंसर 1 आ जाएगा। ठीक है, क्वांटिटी ऑफ 5 रुपीज़ नोट्स और क्वांटिटी ऑफ 5 रुपीज़ कॉइन। इनडिफरेंस मैप, इसका क्या है, ये वाला है। The consumer's preferences over all the bundles can be represented by a family of indifference curves as shown in figure 2.5. This is called an indifference map of the consumer. All points of on an indifference curve represent bundles which are considered indifferent by the consumer. Monotonicity of preferences imply that between any two indifference curves, the bundles on the one which lie above are preferred to the bundles on the one which lie below. Features of indifference curve. Indifference curve slopes downward from left to right. An indifference curve slopes downwards from left to right, which means that in order to have more of bundles, more of bananas, the consumer has to forego some mangoes. If the consumer does not forego some mangoes with an increase in number of bananas, it will mean consumer having more of bananas with same number of mangoes, taking her to a higher indifference curve. Thus, as long as the consumer is on the same indifference curve, an increase in bananas must be compensated by a fall in quantity of mangoes. अभी आ जाएगा यहाँ पे स्लोप आ गया, मैंगोज और बनाना। स्लोप ऑफ द इंडिफरेंस कर्व, द इंडिफरेंस कर्व स्लोप्स डाउनवर्ड एंड इंक्रीज इन द अमाउंट ऑफ बनानास along the indifference curve is associated with a decrease in the amount of mangoes. If delta x1 बड़ा है 0 से, देन डेल्टा x2 बड़ा होगा, वो छोटा होगा 0 से। अब आ जाते हैं, हायर इंडिफरेंस कर्व गिव्स greater level of utility. As long as marginal utility of a commodity is positive, an individual will always prefer more of that commodity. As more of the commodity will increase the level of satisfaction. Representation of different level of utilities from different combination of goods. Combination quantity of bananas, quantity of mangoes. A की quantity बनाना 1 है, quantity of mangoes 10, B 2, quantity mangoes 10, बनानास कितने हैं 3 और मैंगोज के 10। कंसिडर द डिफरेंट कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ बनानास एंड मैंगोज। ए बी सी depicted in table 2.4 and figure 2.7. Combination A B C consist of same quantity of mangoes but different quantities of bananas. Since combination B has more bananas than B, then A B will provide the individual a higher level of satisfaction than A. Therefore, B will lie on a higher indifference curve than A, depicting higher satisfaction. चित्रण। Likewise, C has more bananas than B. Quantity of mangoes is the same in both B and C. Therefore, C will provide higher level of satisfaction than B and also lie on a higher indifference curve than B. A higher indifference curve consisting of combinations with more of mangoes or more of bananas or more of both will represent combinations that give higher level of satisfaction. यहाँ पे ये आ जाएगा, मैंगोज दिखा रहे हैं, यहाँ पे बनाना। हायर इंडिफरेंस curves give greater level of utility. Two indifference curves never intersect each other. Two indifference curves intersecting each other will lead to conflict results. To explain this, let us allow two indifference curves to interest each other as shown in the figure 2.8. As points A and B lie on the same indifference curve IC1, utilities derived from combination A and combination B will give the same level of satisfaction. Similarly, as points A and C lie on the same indifference curve IC2, utility derived from combination A and from combination C will give the same level of satisfaction. ऐसे यहाँ पे ग्राफ में दिखा रखा है टू इंडिफरेंस कर्व्स नेवर इंटरसेक्ट ईच अदर. कभी भी ये क्या करते हैं, एक दूसरे को अलग अलग रहते हैं मतलब. ठीक है, अब आ जाते हैं नेक्स्ट पे. From this, it follows that utility from point B and from point C will also be the same, but this is clearly an observed result. As on point B, the consumer gets a greater number of mangoes with the same quantity of mangoes, so consumer is better off at point B than point C. Thus, it is clear that intersecting indifference curves will lead to conflicting results. Thus, two indifference curves cannot intersect each other. The consumer's budget. Let us consider a consumer who has only a fixed amount of money income to spend on two goods. The prices of the goods are given in the market. The consumer cannot buy any and every combination of the two goods that she may want to consume. The consumption bundles that are available to the consumer depend on the prices of the two goods, and the income of the consumer. Given her fixed income and the prices of the two goods, the consumer can afford to buy only those bundles which cost her less than or equal to her income. Budget set and budget line. Suppose the income of the consumer is M and the prices of bananas and mangoes are P1 and P2 respectively. If the consumer wants to buy X1 quantities of bananas, she will have to spend P1 X1 amount of money. Similarly, if the consumer wants to buy X2 quantities of mangoes, she will have to spend P2 X2 amount of money. Therefore, if the consumer wants to buy the bundle consisting of X1 quantities of bananas and X2 quantities of mangoes, she will have to spend P1 X1 plus P2 X2 amount of money. She can buy this bundle only if she has at least P1 X1 P2 X2 amount of money. Given the prices of the goods and the income of a consumer, she can choose any bundle as long as it costs less than or equal to the income she has. In other words, the consumer can buy any bundle X1 X2 such that P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is smaller than or equal than to M. The inequality 2.1 is called the consumer's budget constraint. The set of bundles available to the consumer is called the budget set. The budget set is thus the collection of bundles that the consumer can buy with her income at the prevailing market prices. ठीक है. If both the goods are perfectly divisible, the consumer's budget set would consist of all bundles X1 X2 such that X1 X2 are any numbers greater than or equal to 0, or P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is smaller or equal to M. The budget set can be represented in a diagram as in figure 2.9. All bundles in the positive quadrant which are on or below the line are included in the budget set. The equation of the lines is P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to M. The line consists of all bundles which cost exactly equal to M. This line is called the budget line. कौन सी? ये वाली. This line is called budget line. ठीक है. Points below the budget line represented bundles which cost strictly less than M. जो budget line के नीचे हैं, ये budget set हो गया, नीचे उनको क्या कह रहे हैं हम, less than M. The equation 2.2 can also written as x2 is equal to M P2 minus P1 upon P2 और यहाँ पे multiply में x1. The budget line is a straight line with horizontal intercept M1 divided by P1 and vertical intercept M2 divided by P2. The horizontal intercept represents the bundle that the consumer can buy if she spends her entire income on bananas. Similarly, the vertical intercept represents the bundle that the consumer can buy if she spends her entire income on mangoes. The slope of the budget line is minus P1 divided by P2. Price ratio and the slope of the budget line. Think of any point on the budget line. Such a point represents a bundle which cost the consumer her entire budget. Now suppose the consumer wants to have one more banana. She can do it only if she gives up some amount of the other good. How many mangoes does she have to give up if she wants to have an extra quantity of bananas? It would depend on the prices of the two goods. A quantity of banana cost P1, therefore she will have to reduce her expenditure on mangoes by P1 amount. If she wants one more quantity of banana with P1, she could buy P1 or P2 quantities of mangoes. Therefore, if the consumer wants to have an extra quantity of bananas when she is spending all her money, she will have to give up P1, P2 quantities of mangoes. In other words, in the given market. Derivation of the slope of the budget line. The slope of the budget line measures the amount of change in mango required per unit of change in bananas along the budget line. Consider any 2 points x1 x2 and x1 plus delta 1 x1 x2 plus delta x2 on the budget line. It must be case that p1 x1 plus p2 x2 is equal to m and p1 x1 plus delta x1 plus p2 ब्रैकेट में x2 प्लस डेल्टा x2 इज इक्वल टू m। सब्सट्रैक्ट यानी घटा देंगे 2.4 को फ्रॉम 2.5, तो हमें क्या मिलेगा p1 डेल्टा x1 प्लस p2 डेल्टा x2 इज इक्वल टू 0। By rearranging terms in 2.6 we obtain delta x2 upon delta x1 is equal to minus p1 divided by minus p2। Conditions: the consumer can substitute bananas for mangoes at the rate P1, P2. The absolute value of the slope of the budget line measures the rate at which the consumer is able to substitute bananas for mangoes when she spends her entire budget. Changes in the budget set. The set of available bundles depends on the prices of the two goods and the income of the consumer. When the price of either of goods or the consumer's income changes, the set of available bundles is also likely to change. Suppose the consumer's income changes from M to M dash, but the prices of the two goods remain unchanged. With the new income, the consumer can afford to buy all bundles X1 X2 such that P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is smaller than or equal than M. Now the equation of the budget line is P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to M. Equation 2.8 can also be written as X2 M dash divided by P2 minus P1 divided by P2 X1. Note that the slope of the new budget line is the same as the slope of the budget line prior to the change in the consumer's income. However, the vertical intercept has changed after the change in income. If there is an increase in the income, that is, if M dash is smaller is greater than M. The vertical as well as horizontal intercepts increase. There is a parallel outward shift of the budget line. If the income increases, the consumer can buy more of the goods at the prevailing market prices. Similarly, if the income goes down, that is, if M dash is smaller than M, but both intercepts decrease, and hence there is a parallel inward shift of the budget line. If income good goes down, the availability of goods goes down. अगर इनकम क्या होगी, इनकम कम होगी तो फिर अवेलेबल जो होंगे गुड्स की अवेलेबिलिटी भी क्या होगी, कम हो जाएगी। चेंज in the set of available bundles resulting from changes in consumers income when the prices of the two goods remain unchanged are shown in figure 2.10. ठीक है, यही इसी तरीके से फिगर में समझा रखा है. Change in set of available bundles of goods resulting from change in the consumer's income. A decrease in income causes a parallel inward shift of the budget line has in parallel A. A ऑप्शन में ये समझा रखा है. And increase in income causes a parallel outward shift of the budget line has parallel B. B में ये समझा रखा है पैनल B में. Now suppose the price of bananas change from P1 to P1 dash, but the price of mangoes and the consumer's income remain unchanged. At the new price of bananas, the consumer can afford to buy all bundles X1, X2 such that P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is smaller than M. The equation of the budget line is P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to M. Equation 2.10 can also written as x2 is equal to m divided by p2 minus p1 or p2 x1. Note that the vertical intercept of the new budget line is same as the vertical intercept of the budget line prior to the change in the price of bananas. However, the slope of the budget line and horizontal intercept have changed after the price change. If the price of bananas increases, that is if P1 dash is greater than P1, the absolute values of the slope of the budget line increases and the budget line becomes steeper. It pivots inward around the vertical intercept and horizontal intercept decreases. If the price of bananas decreases, that is P1 dash is smaller than P1. The absolute value of the slope of the budget line decreases and hence the budget line becomes flatter. Flatter मतलब flat हो जाएगी. It provides pivot pivots outwards around the vertical intercept and horizontal intercept increases. Figure 2.11 आगे देखेंगे. अभी कौन सी फिगर कह रहा है? ये वाली फिगर की बात कर रही है वहाँ पे. 2.11 shows change in the budget set when the price of only one commodity changes while the price of the other commodity as well as income of the consumer are constant. A change in price of mangoes when price of bananas and the consumer's income remain unchanged while bring about similar changes in the budget set of the consumer. ठीक है, इस फिगर की बात चल रही है. Change in the set of available bundles of goods resulting from change in price of bananas. An increase in the price of bananas makes the budget line steeper as in panel A. इसमें a decrease in the price of bananas makes the budget line flatter as in panel B. Optimal choice of the consumer. अब ये पढ़ेंगे कल.